Good morning, everybody. How you doing? A little backstory today. I did some suspension work to my car a couple of weeks ago, and I took it into the shop and had it aligned, and they charged me 69 bucks. I thought that was a really fair price. It's running great. I mean, it's true. It's tracking well. It's handling nicely. I'm very happy with everything that I did, and I'm very happy with the car right now. I did have a check engine light come on, and I asked the garage while they were aligning it if they wouldn't mind just hooking it up to their diagnostic computer and telling me what the problem is. And the guy came back and said, well, you got three problems. He said, first off, he said your EGR valve is giving a code, your mass airflow sensor is giving a code, and the seal on your head gasket or your intake manifold is leaking. We can fix all that for you for 800 bucks. So I got on the internet and I started looking around, and I actually went into my local O'Reilly's, and they told me that the gasket for the intake manifold is going to be 42 bucks. The mass airflow sensor is $118.99, and the EGR valve is $169.99. So that's what, one, two, three, about $300, a little over $300. I got to looking online as well, looking at some YouTube videos to try to decide just how tough it would be to do these things. And I haven't quite got to the bottom of the intake manifold yet. I hadn't found a good video that really explained it. But the EGR valve, I've replaced the MAF before, so I know it's 2 bolts and a plug, and it's done. The EGR valve on the videos I found was the same thing, 2 bolts and a plug, and it's done. And it's very easy to get to. Here's the engine compartment, and right here's the EGR. I found a video that talked about cleaning the EGR. I guess after a while they get a lot of carbon in there, and that little piston will stick open or close. It doesn't move back and forth quite as smoothly as it should. And I watched a couple of videos where some guys cleaned theirs, and I thought, well, that sounds like a pretty good idea. So, I mean, I've cleaned the MAF before. Usually my MAF, this one was a new one I put on a while back. Generally, I'll get one cleaning out of it, and then I have to replace it. And it hadn't been cleaned yet. So I'm going to try to clean the mass airflow. And I thought, what the heck? I'll try to clean the EGR valve too. So I called my nephew. He does a lot of mechanicing, and I texted him and said, hey, what do you recommend for cleaning that? And he told me he really likes a little bit of this choke and carb cleaner. So I was in one of the big box stores the other day, and they had this very brand, $2.99. Went around the corner to the health and beauty aids department, and I bought a firm toothbrush for 98 cents. So we got about $4 invested here. And what we're going to do today is we're going to remove the EGR. We're going to try to clean it as best as we can, get it back on the car. We're going to remove the mass airflow sensor. We're going to clean it and get it back on the car. Then we're going to clear the code, which if I remember correctly, I think I just need to disconnect the battery for about 60 seconds and it clears, but I'm going to look that up just to make 100% sure. And then we're going to see if the code comes back. I'm going to see how it runs. And you can tell it's got a little bit of rough. When it's idling, it's kind of rough. Now, that could also be due to the intake manifold, because it's sucking a little bit of air, and that can make it run rough. But I'm hoping my gas mileage just kind of start to dive a little bit. And I just had the car tuned up maybe 6 months ago. So I'm hoping cleaning the EGR, getting that piston moving well, cleaning the mass airflow will help it run a little smoother, idle a little smoother, maybe get my gas mileage going back up, and then we're going to do some research, and we'll come back and take a look at this intake manifold. Let me go ahead and get started. We're going to get the EGR off first and clean that. First thing I want to do is very carefully remove the wiring harness, and we just pull the clip back and pop it right out, lay it out of the way. There are 2 nuts, one on the back side and one on this side, and they're 13 millimeters. I'm going to have to use an extension to get to them, but that shouldn't be a problem. There we go. See if we can get it out of there without dropping it. That's always the trick. And it's not quite there. There we go. Oh. And I dropped the nut. That's okay. We'll get it out of here in a second. The other one broke loose here. There we go. And that one's really loose. There we are. Now it should lift right out of there. And it is. It's just coming right up off the studs. And you can see this is a gasket here, and I'm going to very carefully remove that. It's stuck on there pretty good. I'm going to get a razor blade and get under that gasket so that I can pop it loose. Just trying to be real careful. I don't want to do any damage to it because I'd like to be able to put this back on. There we go. Got the razor blade under it, and I'm just lifting it up slowly. Come around the back side here. There we go. Got the gasket removed. There's a lot of crud on there. You can see that little valve right there. That's what moves up and down, opens and closes. And it's not moving very smoothly. It's moving, but it's not smooth. So what we're going to do is we're going to try cleaning this out to see if we can get that moving and lubricate it and moving very smooth. I'm going to go ahead and drop this gasket right back onto the studs back here so that I don't misplace it and lose it, because we're just going to reuse it. I've set up a bucket because I really don't want to stain my driveway or anything. This stuff will eventually evaporate, but there's quite a bit of carbon buildup. And this is sticking a tiny bit. Let's go ahead. Now, I'm going to shoot this pretty liberally with some of this carbon choke cleaner. Whew. Strong odor. This stuff will evaporate, but I got a firm toothbrush here. I'm just going to use that and try to scrub around the valve and inside of this port and try to loosen up and remove as much of the carbon deposits as we can. Now, my nephew said he's done this quite a bit, and he uses a brass brush. You definitely do not want to use a wire brush. Brass is soft, it would work, but I did not want to take a chance at doing any damage. So that's why I picked up, this is just a firm toothbrush. Like I said, I got it for 98 cents. So I don't really feel like I'm out anything. See all the debris coming out of there? That's just carbon buildup over time. Quite a bit of it, actually. Over time, with the exhaust gases coming through here, you're going to build up a little bit of a carbon residue. Very carefully scrape that. Just a little bit of the gasket, the top layer of the gasket still left on there. Let's get some more on there. This stuff dries rather quickly, so that's good. And I'm just going to keep working it and working it and working it until the valve is already moving smoother. What I want to do is, just inside there, there's sort of a ring of, there we go, still see kind of some buildup. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the camera off, and I'm just going to keep cleaning this valve, and you can see how much easier it's already moving. But I want to continue to clean and get as much of this carbon off as I can, and I'll come back and we'll get this reassembled on the car. Then we'll work on the mass airflow sensor and see how she runs after that. I've been cleaning for a while. I've got the surface nice and smooth. I mean, there's some discoloration. I'm sure that's just from heat buildup. The valve is just so easy to push in. It just operates so smooth. I've cleaned as much of the gunk out of this port as I can. EGR, I believe, stands for exhaust gas recirculation valve. And what this does is it recirculates the exhaust gas back through the motor. Something to do with emissions control. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I'm going to go ahead and get this reinstalled on the car. I'm real happy with how smooth that valve is moving. And let's see what happens. The toughest part of this job was locating the nut that I dropped, but I can see it down there. It's on the transaxle, and I got this little magnet, and we've recovered that, so that's always a plus. I just want to make sure that I seat this the proper way, and if you take a look, you can see the larger hole in the back, so there's a larger hole, so it's going to go this way. Make sure we get the studs through the little holes on either side. I tell you what, this is going to be tricky because my hand does not want to go in there. Let's get a finger under there. There we go. I think I can do it this way. Otherwise, I'm going to drop this nut again. All right, I've got it on top of the stud. We'll twist it backwards once or twice. There we go. Now we're tightening down. And I'm just going to snug it up by hand. There we go. Let's get the other nut on there. This one will be a little easier because I've got a little more open access to it. Back it up. Make sure the threads are aligned. Snug her down. I'm just going to snug it a little bit at a time. I'm not going to try to crank one side faster or harder than the other. Okay, pretty happy with that. Reattach the wiring harness, and the EGR has been cleaned and is prepared to be tested. Next up, I want to go ahead and I want to take care of cleaning my mass airflow sensor. Then we'll come back and reset the codes and give this car a test drive. I've got the EGR back on the car, and I was just about to pop the mass airflow sensor when I took a closer look at my paperwork, the diagnostic paperwork. It didn't say MAF, it said MAP. Let me show you the difference. The mass airflow sensor is here, and this is the air, the outside air coming into the motor, and it monitors that. And there's a little valve in here that it can open and close to help get the right amount of air into the motor. So I guess it's like a newfangled choke almost, where it'll close the flap when it needs less air, open it when it needs more. On this side of the motor is the MAP sensor, and both of them are extremely easy to get to. You unplug the wiring harness, there's two clips, this baby pops right off. What this does is monitor pressure inside the motor on the intake manifold. So I know for a fact, because you can see it all over the back of the motor and all under the car on the cardboard I keep under it, that my intake manifold is leaking and antifreeze is running down the motor. I'm betting that that MAP sensor is not bad. It's throwing a code because pressure inside of the motor is low because the gasket is shot and it's sucking air. So I called, it's $41.99 for a MAP sensor. It's $41.99 for a gasket. I'm not going to replace the MAP sensor. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop this video. I'm going to go do my research, find out what it's going to take to replace that intake manifold, just so I'm aware of what to expect. And then I'm going to buy the intake manifold gasket. I'm going to replace that on the car. Then we're going to see if that mass airflow sensor is still throwing codes. I'm sorry, that MAP sensor is still throwing codes. MAF, MAP, boy, those are so close. And that was my fault. I just read it wrong. So I'm really happy about that because I went from about $160, whatever I told you in the beginning of the video, to $41 if it's bad. But since it monitors pressure and it's saying pressure's low, and we know the gasket's leaking, I don't think it's bad. I think it's doing its job. What I want to do right now is I'm going to reset the codes on the computer in the car so that my check engine light should go off. It may come right back on because of this low pressure, but we're going to go ahead and, as a matter of fact, I know it will, but I'm going to go ahead and reset it, and then we're going to take the car for a little spin and see if there's any difference. I just wanted to show you the bottom of this bucket. You can see all this crap in here, all this dirt. Now this is the liquid from the, let me tip it a little bit, but see all the dirt in there? That all came out of, that's the carbon that came out of that EGR valve, or ERG valve. I tell you what, I get these acronyms mixed up sometimes, but it really, a lot of crap really came out of it, and I kept shooting that choke and carb cleaner, and it just kept coming out and coming out. So I shot until it looked clean. Before I took the car out on a little test drive, I decided to do a little research online and see just what's involved in this intake manifold gasket. And I thought that way I'll just do the test drive up to the auto parts store if it's not too bad. It looks like there's a lot of small bits and pieces to it. You've got a lot of electronic harnesses that you're going to unplug. You're going to remove the fuel distribution line, and it looks it's complicated, but it doesn't look all that bad, so I think I'm willing to try it. But what I want to do is I want to go up to the auto parts store and see just what you get for 41 or 48 bucks, whatever it was they told me. Because from the video, the gentleman was explaining that the intake manifold cover is plastic, and the exhaust, the hot exhaust, will actually warp the plastic. So my concern is maybe I don't have a gasket leaking, because it looked like it was neoprene, which is usually pretty good, but maybe the plastic cover's warped. So I'm going to head up there and see just what I get for my money. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to fire the car up and just make sure it's not running different than it was. It may still run rough because it's going to be sucking air, but I'm going to end this video, and then I'm going to go up there and talk with those guys and see what I get for my money. Then I got a buddy of mine that said I can borrow a inch-pound torque wrench, which I'll need, and I'm going to go pick that up, and we'll just see how it goes on replacing this intake manifold gasket. So I'll keep you guys posted. But thanks a lot for hanging out with me. I really appreciate it, and we'll see you real soon. Take care, everybody.